with near freezing temperatures. The water would have been cold. Cold enough to kill.
When D.B. Cooper hit the water, like we believe he did, he would have only had a matter of minutes in that type of cold water to get off on shore at that point. Remember, he was laden with 20 pounds of money, he had a harness, and he had a long parachute attached to him at this point. So we think that his odds of survival would have been very low.
A single dry stack will float up to 15 minutes, and I've measured this between 10 to 15 minutes, so there is some variance. Factors include the worn bills, which will actually sink faster than crisp bills, and face up will float longer than if it goes on its side, and that's why a very loose fitting stack with maybe only one rubber band will actually last longer floating because it can stabilize itself. Whereas when I put two rubber bands and made it compact, it actually wanted to tip, letting the air out quicker, making it sink much faster. So that's something for you to know. Now, the money bag itself would float significantly longer than a single stack of cash. I don't know how much longer. I don't know if it's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours a day. I don't know. But we're really talking about a matter of hours, not months. Not years, nothing like that. The bag itself would float on its side, which means the money inside would be on its side, which means the water can actually get in between the bills much quicker. But because it's compact, tougher for the air to escape. So I don't know. And I can actually calculate how high this bag is going to sit on the water. I've made that calculation. I posted it a couple years ago in Drop Zone. It's not really worth discussing, but if you're curious, go try to look it up and search it out. Now, once the money sinks, I'm going to call this the float time of money axiom. Once the money sinks, it's not going to float again unless someone or something intervenes. So, what do I mean by that? Well, here I have a bucket of water. Okay, sorry, it's not that big of a bucket. I'm holding it in one hand, okay? Here I have a stack of cash that I sunk. I sunk this stack of cash about 4.5 hours ago, and it's just been sitting on my desk since then. It's been sitting on my desk since then. I haven't tried to dampen it. I haven't tried to dry it. And for the first time, I'm going to test this axiom out. Will a sunken piece of money float or won't it float? And as you can see, it went to the bottom immediately. This has been out of the water for almost 5 hours now. Conversely, sorry about that. All right. Conversely, a dry stack of cash sits on top. All right. So once money sinks, it doesn't float again, okay? Unless major intervention is made. I mean, basically meaning it has to dry itself out. And a money bag itself, I already said, would float longer than a single stack of cash because it takes longer for the air to escape. Well, contraposition would tell us that the same thing applies when it's wet. It takes longer to dry, so the bag itself is going to remain in this non-floating state much, much longer than a single stack of cash. So a sunken bag of money will not float longer than a sunken stack of cash. What causes this is the time it takes for air to escape and the time it takes for water to evaporate. And both are more time intensive with the bigger 100 stack bag than they are of a single stack. I mean, think of when you do your laundry. what dries quicker, if you just throw a shirt in the dryer, or if you throw a whole load in the dryer? It's pretty straightforward, the float time of money axiom. So this means, in English, that a sunken bag of money, if you were to place a saturated bag of money on the beach alongside a single stack of cash, okay, the stack of cash would actually dry out and float away much sooner, much sooner than a whole bag of cash. So this is a provable theorem. That's why I'm calling it the money float theorem. It's provable. We're not talking about an immediate landing here. I want to point this out. We're not talking about the plane flying over, Cooper coming out, he land, or the bag comes separated and then it lands and it's dry. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a bag that has been in the wet Northwest on the Columbia River for 7 years. That's what we're talking about. So the money is not fresh, it is wet. It is like that stack of cash that I had sitting on my desk for 5 hours and I just dumped it in the water and it sunk immediately. That's what we're talking about. So, here's a fact to consider. Only the stacks of cash are found. Where's the bag? Something has to cause this bag to leave and leave the stacks behind. Water transport here, like I'm saying, does not work. And the only way it would work is if we assume a dry bag of money. So incidentally, I want to point out as a side, just to show you the kind of logic that I've had to put up with over the years. I had a guy on Drop Zone. He argued with me for probably a month, telling me that, he called this guy who was a money bag supplier, and they had this talk or whatever. And he told me that there was no way this money bag that they gave Cooper was not waterproof. I mean, he said it had to be waterproof, it had to have zippers and everything, right? Because Cooper would have gotten pissed off if they brought him a bag that was not waterproof. Really? Are you serious? I mean, what's Ralph Himmelsbach have to say about this?
They threw rubber bands around them and threw them into a large white canvas bank money bag with a drawstring, like a laundry bag. And this is how the money was turned over to the FBI at the bank in Seattle.
I think it's pretty clear that that guy that argued with me on Drop Zone was an idiot. But let's move on. So, the ramifications of the money float theorem. Wind transportation, that's a hypothetical. However, like I said, the bag weighs over 40 pounds. Okay? It's harder to push that bag than it is a single stack of cash. And frankly, neither one of these things are going anywhere. This thing, the wind's not going to blow it. It's too dense. Okay? So, wind does not account for it. Water doesn't account for it. And I guess I'm going to cut off this video now, and we will discuss this in greater detail further.